What if the problem is not that human beings know too little, but that they become too certain too quickly? Welcome to Nerdjacker's Vault. Today we're stepping into Book 1 of Outlines of Pyrrhonism by Sextus Empiricus, a work that quietly dismantles the confidence behind almost every philosophy claiming to possess the truth. And it begins with a simple observation. When people search for truth, they usually fall into three groups. Some believe they have found it, others decide truth cannot be found at all. And then there are the skeptics, the ones who continue searching without fully committing themselves to certainty. That distinction becomes the foundation of the book. The Stoics, Aristotelians, Epicureans all construct systems explaining reality. Others conclude certainty itself is impossible. But the skeptic refuses both positions. He neither claims certainty nor denies its possibility entirely. He suspends judgment, and that suspension becomes the heart of Pyrrhonism. What Sextus describes is not skepticism in the modern sense of cynicism or disbelief. The skeptic is not someone who rejects everything. In fact, the skeptic continues living normally. He eats when hungry, drinks when thirsty, follows customs, participates in society. The difference is internal. Most people unconsciously transform appearances into truths. If something feels convincing, they begin treating it as reality itself. The skeptic pauses there. Honey tastes sweet, but does sweetness exist objectively inside the honey itself? A tower appears round from far away and square from nearby. Which appearance reveals its real form? Again and again, Sextus returns to the instability of perception. What feels hot to one person feels cold to another. Something as cute as a cat can frighten some of us. Even within ourselves, perception shifts through illness, fear, exhaustion, or age. Reality begins feeling less fixed than people assume. And this is where Pyrrhonism becomes psychologically interesting. Sextus argues that skepticism begins from a desire for peace of mind. Human beings suffer because they desperately want certainty. They divide the world into true and false, good and bad, and then exhaust themselves defending those judgments. But the skeptic discovers something unexpected. Peace does not come from possessing certainty. It comes from loosening the need for certainty. Sextus tells the story of the painter Apelles. Unable to paint the foam around a horse's mouth properly, Apelles eventually threw his sponge at the canvas in frustration and accidentally created the exact effect he wanted. The skeptics experienced something similar. They searched intensely for certainty, hoping it would bring tranquility. Instead, tranquility appeared only after they suspended judgment itself. That idea quietly shapes the entire work. The more tightly people cling to rigid explanations, the more conflict they create, both internally and socially. Arguments should be designed not to prove that skepticism is true, but to weaken dogmatic certainty. Different animals perceive the world differently. Different cultures disagree completely about morality. Distance changes appearance. Habit changes judgment. Nothing appears entirely by itself. Everything appears through conditions. What people call truth may simply be perception filtered through biology, culture, language, and expectation. Even logic itself becomes unstable at times. Every proof requires another proof. Eventually, reasoning falls either into circularity or infinite regress. At some point, every system depends on assumptions accepted without proof. And this becomes one of Pyrrhonism's deepest observations. Certainty often hides unexamined foundations. Sextus also examines morality and culture. Customs differ radically across societies. Practices celebrated in one culture are condemned in another. Again, the skeptic does not conclude that nothing matters. He concludes that certainty about what matters may be far weaker than people assume. And this is important, because Pyrrhonism is not paralysis. Skeptics still act. They still live. They simply stop demanding absolute certainty behind every action. You can eat without knowing the ultimate nature of food. You can participate in society without claiming possession of final truth. And perhaps that is why skepticism still feels modern. Not because it gives final answers, but because it exposes how often human beings mistake confidence for truth. The skeptic does not stand outside the world claiming superiority. He simply keeps questioning. And in that questioning, he finds a kind of liberation. That's all for today. Please subscribe for more contents like this. For the full audiobook, please check the link in the description.